Education in America is facing a profound upheaval. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order setting in motion the dismantling of the Department of Education, stirring both applause and alarm among politicians, parents, and educators. The president claims that relinquishing control to the states will foster efficiency and local empowerment, appealing to voters who resent what they perceive as federal overreach. Yet critics say that abolishing an entire cabinet-level agency could be disastrous without a thorough plan for how children's educational needs will be funded and protected. New York City, for instance, currently receives around $2 billion a year from the Department of Education. District officials, teachers, and families worry those crucial funds could vanish, leaving schools ill-equipped to offer programs that help the most vulnerable students. Many Title I schools depend on federal contributions to keep class sizes manageable and offer extra academic support. Without robust funding, the achievement gap between rich and poor communities could widen, depriving low-income students of essential resources. Another pressing issue is the potential impact on special education programs. Families of children with disabilities rely on federal protections and financial backing to ensure these students receive accommodations, therapies, and specialized instruction. Linda McMahon, the current Secretary of Education, has publicly stated her opposition to cutting Title I and support programs for disabled students. Nonetheless, thousands of educators fear that intent alone may not shield those services when the department's infrastructure is under threat. Any wholesale elimination of the Department of Education requires congressional action because the agency was established by legislation in 1979. This reality sets the stage for a major showdown on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers must decide whether to uphold or reject the administration's agenda. So far, Trump has already slashed half of the department's workforce, sending shockwaves through the education community. Some staff members reported minimal notice before being let go, suggesting a willingness by the White House to move ahead swiftly. Critics also cite the debate over critical race theory as one catalyst for this push. Though experts generally agree that critical race theory is not taught in most K-12 schools, the administration continues to invoke it as an example of what federal agencies might impose on local districts. Simultaneously, the president insists Pell Grants and disability funding will be preserved and administered by other agencies. However, teachers wonder if reassigning these critical funds might inadvertently create gaps in oversight and accountability. While all of this transpires, Elon Musk, billionaire entrepreneur and head of a newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has drawn public scrutiny for his role in reshaping the federal bureaucracy at large, with flamboyant displays like a literal chainsaw for trimming bureaucratic fat. He's making headlines just as the courts examine the constitutionality of his actions. In one case, aid to South Africa was abruptly suspended based on allegations of racial discrimination linked to land expropriation. That decision triggered international uproar, with more than 100 members of parliament worldwide urging Trump to revoke the order and restore critical health funds. Chief Justice John Roberts has already publicly condemned efforts by the Trump administration to push for the impeachment of judges whose rulings it dislikes. His statement underscored that judges should not face removal simply for decisions that frustrate the White House. Trump, however, appears undeterred. He continues to champion a vision of leaner, more localized governance, while portraying the Department of Education as a wasteful middleman. Still, he cannot simply erase the legislation that established the agency. Educators emphasize that standardizing national policies remains crucial, particularly around civil rights, special education, and accountability measures designed to support all students. They point out that local control, though beneficial in many respects, can sometimes exacerbate disparities. Within that whirlwind, parents across the country now wonder if their children's schools will lose the federal backing they rely upon for lunches, technology grants, and safe learning environments. Some vow to protest, others petition lawmakers, and many hang in limbo until Congress clarifies its stance. In parallel, Musk's dramatic interventions at other agencies have sparked questions about his role in public administration. Some see him as an innovative force who can cut bureaucracy. Others view his approach as reckless, ignoring the complexities of governance and potentially harming those who rely on consistent federal programs. Regardless, tension is rising. Court rulings have temporarily halted some of DOJ's more aggressive maneuvers, such as demands for sweeping access to Social Security data. The judge called that request a fishing expedition, rejecting the idea that Musk's team could grab private information without constraints. Observers note that if the judiciary rules against Trump and Musk on the Department of Education, as they did with USAID, the entire plan to shutter the education agency could collapse. Lawsuits citing the need for congressional input might set binding precedents. Some Republicans embrace the change, seeing an opportunity to fulfill long-standing conservative aims of smaller federal involvement in education. Others in the GOP caution that abrupt transformation might backfire if states cannot handle the sudden responsibility. Democrats, meanwhile, overwhelmingly oppose the move. They argue that children in underserved areas will suffer most, and that powerful states might manage, but poorer ones will flounder. They also see the effort as part of a broader campaign to shift public resources away from national oversight. At the heart of the matter lies a debate about whether the federal government should guide education standards or if state autonomy will yield better outcomes. For decades, the Department of Education has supplied both funding and enforcement of civil rights laws in schools. Teachers, parents, and students stand on the front lines, waiting to see how these political maneuvers will shape classrooms. The future of Pell Grants, special education, Title I funding, and free meal programs is hardly trivial, affecting millions daily. It remains to be seen whether Musk's flamboyant approach to reform will last, especially as Tesla's performance might draw his attention back to the private sector. Even if he departs, the rearranged agencies could struggle to recover from disarray. Trump's intention to move fast has played well with those frustrated by bureaucracy, but critics warn that destructive haste can create chaos. Rebuilding might take years, long after the immediate wave of headlines fades. Parents continue to speak out, hoping their representatives will resist hasty dissolution of a department that, despite its flaws, oversees vital protections. Congressional hearings are likely, and the court docket is filling with challenges to executive decisions. In essence, the country grapples with the legacy of a presidential promise to cut through red tape. The question is whether these cuts deliver beneficial reforms or jeopardize education in ways that could resonate for generations. For now, the White House pushes forward, balancing lawsuits and legislative hurdles, leaving educators and families in limbo. Over the coming months, the fate of the Department of Education, alongside the course of federal aid, may reveal just how much power the president truly holds. All eyes turn to Congress and the judiciary, the final arbiters of whether entire agencies can be reshaped or disbanded by sheer executive will. One thing is certain: America's schools and global aid partners are watching intently, waiting to see what happens next.